What's up, guys? Today we're going to talk about the Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund, or the HEERF, who's eligible, what it is, and how you can get paid if you are a college student right now. Okay, so let's dive into exactly what it is. So essentially, this was talked about initially with the CARES Act that was passed on March 27th, and it said that about $14 billion of the CARES Act was going to be applied to higher education. But it was super vague. But earlier this week on the 21st, the Department of Ed came out and they gave more specific details about how this Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund was going to work. And those details are what I want to talk about today so that you are fully informed as of today, the 23rd of April. So of that $14 billion proposed for higher education, they said that $6 billion is going to go directly to students for what they're calling the cost of attendance. Food, housing, technology, childcare, and other course materials that are included inside going to school. Now we're going to talk about how to get paid in just a second, but one thing that really stood out to me in the rules is that after the colleges give you money, students are going to have the choice of how they really spend that money, which I think is going to be a big deal. They have the choice to pay for these college expenses, but they don't necessarily have to, which could get a little bit dangerous. And there were certain things that schools could or could not do with the money. So let's talk about that real quick. Schools have to give at least 50% of the money right back to students in the forms of cash, direct deposit, electric transfer, debit cards, like other electric payments, things like that. 50% of the money has to go there. So where would the other 50% go? Well, if a school happened to give their own grants out to students after March 27th when the CARES Act was in place, then schools can reimburse themselves for grants that they had already given to students. Now, there's a little bit of gray area there, so I have to be specific. They cannot use the money to reimburse themselves for tuition and room and board that was lost. So if they gave a grant to a kid, like they gave them money to pay for stuff, they could reimburse them. But if a kid maybe hadn't paid for room and board or things like that, they can't go back with the money and use it to reimburse themselves for money lost. They also can't use it to pay employees. That includes student workers as well. They're being told that they should pay their employees during this time to the best of their abilities, but they can't use this fund money to pay for those employees. And they also can't apply this to fees and other things, taxes that come along with tuition. So as far as like how the schools can use the money, it looks like, that you are pretty protected as a student. The schools are not just going to be able to go spend this money willy-nilly. I mean, they're going to have to prove some things, and I'll talk about that in 1 second. So one thing they're going to have to do after they get the money, they're going to have to report how much money they gave out in total. All right, they're going to have to report that to the government. They're also going to have to say how they determine how much money went to each student, like what was the calculation there. And they're also going to have to give detailed instructions to the students on how to spend the money, right? They can't just say to the government, oh yeah, we gave them $500. They have to say, we gave them $500 and we told them that it should be used for cost of attendance things. So they have to protect themselves in that way. So like I said, when they get the money, they're not just going to be able to spend it however they want. The government's going to want to know exactly how that money was spent. All right, so now let's talk about if you're eligible, because the eligibility is really the only thing that matters. I remember when the CARES Act came out, bunch of my former students like, Finn, is my tuition going to get paid for? And I was like, don't know yet. And then the details came out like, Finn, is our tuition going to get paid for? Well, here's the eligibility requirements as of right now. Although the FAFSA is not required, this is definitely going to be your easiest route. If you don't know what the FAFSA is and you're going to college, it's something you should really be filling out every single year. You can go to FAFSA.org and it gives you things like Pell Grants and other grants, but it also gives you some financial aid as well as that. So the students that have done this, they've already told the government about how much money they make, where they go to school, what their tuition is. So the government already has all that information on you. So that's going to be the easiest way to get paid. If you don't fill out your FAFSA, you could still get the money, but I'm going to be honest with you, you're going to have to jump through a ton of hoops, and at the end of the day, it might not be worth it. So I guess lesson learned, if you're not filling out your FAFSA every year, you should probably do that. You could start in October. The window is October to June. If you want a video about the FAFSA, let me know, I'll make it. But if you're filling that out, that's going to be your first step to eligibility in this process. On March 13th, that's when the president, he made his national emergency proclamation. So if you were exclusively an online student at that time, you are not eligible. So if you're an online student, this is not going to be for you. Also, international and undocumented students, you are also not eligible for these grants. And the last bit of eligibility is really in the school's hands. It's going to be up to the school whether you can get this money or not. And I'll talk about that right now. How do we get paid if we're eligible, right? You filled out your FAFSA, you're good to go, you're not an online student, you're not international, you're not undocumented. All right, how are we going to get paid now? And why does the school really determine that? Well, I guess the really only actionable step you could take as of right now would be contacting your financial aid department and asking them if they've applied for the grant. As of today, only about 50% of the eligible schools have applied. They have to be the one that's active, not you. They're the one that needs to contact the government and ask for this money. They're the ones that are going to have to apply, which is a little crappy because I know a lot of schools, especially I've heard from the Ivies like Harvard, and I also saw an article on Yale. They've come out and said, we're not even going to apply. Like, this is not for us. This is not something we want to do. So I guess unless your school applies, you're out of luck. Now, I saw a list on collegescholarships.org. It gave the schools that have applied already. I'm sure that's very Googleable, or like I said, just call up your school, ask them if they had applied. If they haven't, then you're not going to get the money. Also, the type of school you go to is a major, major factor. Most of the money, about $4.5 billion of that, is going to go to public schools first. So a majority of it is going to go to public school. If you're a public school student, you are more likely to get money from this grant. Private and nonprofit schools came in at about $1.2 billion, so a quarter less than if you go to a public school. And then your for-profit schools are only going to get about 500 mil. So if you go to a for-profit school, not looking good for you. So the actionable step you could take right now is call your school, see if they've applied, see what you have to do next with them because they're going to be the ones you're going to have to interact with to get that money. I promise I will give you more updates if anything new comes out, if I find out any information. If you're new to the channel, guys, please subscribe so you can get those updates and hit the notification bell so that you get told every single time I release a video or go live. Until I see you on the next one, stay positive, work really, really hard always. Be kind to other people. I hope you have yourself an amazing day and an even better tomorrow.